Welcome to Prairie Fire Lines, the show where we spark conversations about prescribed fire and its role in conserving Canada's prairie grasslands. I'm Kat Zenz, your host and Communications and Outreach Officer for the Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange. We work with partners across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to bring fire back to the land safely, effectively, and with respect for the Indigenous traditions that have guided grassland stewardship for generations. We acknowledge that the prairie provinces that we work on are situated on Treaties 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and the homeland of the Métis. Each episode, you'll hear from people in the fire world about how prescribed fire works, why it matters, and the many ways it helps our prairie ecosystems thrive. So cozy up by the fireplace. This is Prairie Fire Lines, where we keep the conversation burning. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Prairie Fire Lines. The episode you're about to hear was recorded back in September of last year and is finally making its way out into the world. And trust me, you're in for a treat. In this episode, I sit down with Dale Gross, a grassland ecologist with Saskatchewan Parks and a founding member of the Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange. Dale shares how he was first introduced to the world of fire, including being mentored by Dr. James Romo, the same professor who taught fellow CPPFE partner Rennie Grills. We talk about his fire-focused master's and PhD research, the beginnings of the CPPFE, and how his journey has shaped his role today as a mentor and leader in the fire community. Thank you so much to Dale for being part of the podcast, and without further ado, here is Prairie Fire Lines. Good afternoon, Dale. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm really well, thanks, Kat. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Well, it's my pleasure.
So, for our audience who may not know, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dale Gross. I'm a grassland ecologist with Saskatchewan Parks. My parents are Peter and Marilyn. I'm married to Kara, and we have a son. He's my stepson, Jamal.
Could you talk more about what you do as a grassland ecologist?
Lots of things related to the management of grassland areas and other things in our provincial parks. So there's 36 provincial park sites, 105, I think 104 rec sites, 1.4 million hectares of land across Saskatchewan. And I'm tasked with managing primarily the grassland parks, but I'm also the lead for invasive species control, and that's in every park. I get to do a lot of different things. One of those things is prescribed fire, and I try to incorporate different other management techniques with fire to manage certain issues like wildfire, fuel buildup, invasive plants, noxious weeds, lots of different things.
Could you elaborate more on how you first got interested in pursuing prescribed fire as a management tool?
I think it's probably back when I was young, my grandparents and my mom and dad, especially my mom, burned at the farm. And then my master supervisor, Dr. Jim Romo, was really into studying and sharing fire in grasslands. And when I went to school, as luck would have it, we linked up, and I learned a lot from him as well.
So, talking more about going to school, I understand that you have both a master's and a PhD from the USask in projects that are related to prescribed fire. Could you walk us through more about your master's research project and how that one came to be?
Sure, sure. Like I said, I had taken some classes from Jim as an undergrad, and we just got along, I guess. So he had introduced the idea of me doing a master's degree at the time, and I was such a, I don't know, not a country bumpkin, but just unaware of the world, I guess. I didn't even really know what a master's degree was, but Jim had explained it to me. He said, "I've got this project laid out at Canadian Prairie. It's 320 acres of fescue prairie just east of Saskatoon at the time. Now it's pretty much within the city limits. It was to see if burning at different times of the year, he was able to burn it like in 10 months of the year and at different frequencies. So once one burn ever or twice within 5 years. So these different times of the year, different frequencies of burning, how they had an effect on how the plant community responded. So there were these dozens of 10 meter by 10 meter burn plots that I was brought in about in 2003 to complete the field work and analysis on 6 years of data and then help write papers associated with the project. So, you know, it was like it had a really profound impact on my life. Jim and his network of students and professionals is how I've navigated my career ever since. Like Rennie and Perry Grills, Matt Braun, Andrew Pantel, Michelle Tremblay. Like these are all people that I met during that period and I've worked with ever since. So it really was a turning point in my life to do that project with Jim all those years ago already.
Can you tell me more about him, about Jim? Because I remember when I talked to Rennie Grills back in episode 1, he mentioned him having a profound impact on his own experiences with prescribed fire. So can you talk a bit more about him and impact on your career?
Yeah, yeah, no, I liked that very much. Jim was a real force in plant ecology in the prairies, and he taught a lot of people over 25 or I think maybe 27 or more years even of as a professor at the University of Saskatchewan. And I remember being when I first met him, I guess, I'm being so spooked by his teaching style that I dropped his class immediately. I just was like, this is not, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna do well here. And luckily, I guess I got over that fear. And eventually, like I said, we had several classes together and we got to know each other. And he offered me a position as a grad student. And he was really passionate about prescribed fire. And I remember this, I tell this story once in a while that here's this project at Kern Prairie about burning at different times of the year and different frequencies. And I was such a uh, unaware again of how life is because we had burned at the farm since I was a little kid. So I was like, why would anybody want to study that? Why would anybody waste their time? And I pretty much said it to him like that, which I regret, but I think we laughed about it eventually. So I got to really be involved with prescribed fire in the early 2000s that way. And so, Jim and his partnership with Luke Delaney at Mewasan, so Rennie's predecessor, those guys we talked with all the time and became the foundation of prescribed fire for so many of us that came through those programs. And Jim was a neat guy. He was at the lab at the university every day at 7 a.m. And so was I. So then we got a couple hours of visiting before everything got busy at the school. So I learned a lot from those really informal chats that, you take classes and all those other things, but it was that time together that really was influential for how I understood things. And then in the afternoons and evenings, visiting with Matthew Braun from Nature Conservancy, Andrew Pantel, I mentioned before, he's a contractor now. And that's how I really got to understand ecology and fire. And I only got to burn with Jim one time. And I remember laughing about it because I thought he was intense in the classroom. And then on the fire line, he was like a military general. So it was a whole nother level of intensity. And he was not a large man. He just had a way about him. So I remember just thinking that was really funny that this general was going to bark orders at us and you'd listen. Like we were in blue jeans and sneakers at the time, so probably was worth it to have that kind of attention to what you were doing rather than goofing off. So it was a neat time. I can't believe it's 20 years ago.
Years ago.
That happened really fast, but yeah, no, it really was. shaped things for me to come for years to come. Yeah.
What if you learned from like that burn, specifically working with him?
Yeah, on that one burn, and I feel at a loss because I'm sure there were other times, but I would have been busy doing other things. And like say, we farmed, and I was away doing lots of other things at the time. But just that you have to be very attentive on a fire line, and I think that's probably why I like it so much because a lot of life, especially at work, you're kind of sleepwalking through a lot of stuff. And in that situation, I like to say I burn for work. I am very awake. I am very attentive to what's going on around me, and it is a real bonding experience to which those people that are involved are my friends for life because of the situations we've been on the fire line. And my wife works in healthcare and she has a very, very stressful job in the ICU. And she talks about those bonds she makes with her people because of the situations they've been put in, especially over the last few years. Kind of like that. It's just a special thing that you can't totally describe. It's just when you pull together on the same task that you need everybody to work together. It's just special. It's just something that you can't get in regular life.
Oh, for sure. I think when we talk about prescribed fire, I guess like at the CPPFE and we have all these meetings and stuff, like we talk about the importance of partnership. But I guess I don't hear a lot about how a lot of these partnerships turn into these really, really close, tight friendships too, because like you guys go through such similar things. So it's really nice to hear about how close
Yeah,
that these
my
relationships are.
yeah, my theme when I get to talk to people um with a little bit more time, you kind of rush through a lot of things in life, but it's just how important and how much I value those relationships that I built through this sort of thing. And I think that's probably why I wanted to do it in the first place, is you just can't do that as an adult. You're busy, you got your life, and you just can't make those kind of relationships. And it's very special.
So, how about your PhD research project? Can you walk me through that more?
Yeah, it was a long time in between my master's and PhD, so I had a few jobs. I got to get some life experience, and then kind of always had wanted to expand on what we had done at Canadian Prairie, just on a much larger scale, and involve a lot more people. I just thought it was interesting to do what we did at Kernan. I just wanted to try something a little bit bigger, and really to look at both bison and cattle and how they would respond to fires as well as the plant community. And I was able to do that at Nature Conservancy of Canada's Old Man and His Back site in Southwest Saskatchewan. It's a 13,000 acre conservation ranch, and bison on one side of the fence, cattle on the other, and was able to design this experiment to really see how those things could play out. I wanted to share the conservation value of fire and bison in a place like a protected grassland, but also show that it can benefit a livestock operation with cattle as well. I had worked at Nature Conservancy from about 2013, and I had left in 2017 then to pursue this degree at the University of Saskatchewan with Dr. Eric Lamb. And at the time, now it seems a little bit antiquated almost, but we incorporated some newer technology at the time with GPS collars and drone, unmanned aerial vehicles imagery to see if responses were different at different scales. So we designed that experiment to have spring and fall burns in 6 pastures, so one bison pasture and 5 cattle pastures for up to 4 years. So that's 48 20 acre burns in total, and we were successful in completing 4. So at the time, I look back and I laugh at how ambitious I was, but we were successful. We were able to help three people get their master's degree. Another person got their undergrad thesis, and two people from they were students at Sask Polytechnic, and they got their certificates in the with the project working at Old Manors Back and working with my former coworkers at the Nature Conservancy, a bunch of other agencies, including Meewasin, especially some of the ranchers at Old Manors Back with their cattle being GPS collared. They helped us lots with the bison handling and the bison collars as well. It was very challenging, uh, very rewarding. I can't believe we pulled it off. I look at some old pictures from that time of where I'm mowing a fire guard in November and it's 25 below, and I'm just like, what brought me here? Why am I doing this? And I'm happy it's done. I'm happy it worked out as well. So
Um, so when you talk about all of these groups that worked with you on this huge project that Old Man and his back, like that sounds a lot like the partnerships that we have today when we do prescribed fires and when we do things like treks, but the CPPFE. So I know that you are a very important figure in the foundation of the CPPFE. So can you talk more about how this very work led to the foundation of the CPPFE?
yeah, I'm very lucky that I got to be an adult that got to go back to school. You know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm,
not everybody gets to do that. So there's a lot of people that I want to thank as I describe this to you, how these sort of things kind of came together.
for sure.
Uh for sure. Like firstly, the project at Old Man on His Back would not have been possible without Dr. Eric Lamb. He had the collars for the bison and the cattle. He had funding, and he had a real interest in working in Southwest Saskatchewan on a fire and grazing project with me. Uh, the public were not super keen on burning in the Southwest at the time. I don't know that there are a whole lot more now, but at the time it was a challenging prospect for us to be able to pull this off. But he had confidence in me, so you know it the real gratitude. I have a lot of gratitude for Eric for believing in me that I could pull that research project off. And then I was still working for Nature Conservancy at the time when we were starting to just plan this together, and I was able to get um, a grant from Eliza Mitchell, and she's a director with the Weston Family Foundation. Um, Early on with just a project description, and right away then we were able to match that money with a My Tax grant, and that paid for a lot of things, um, including summer students, including those um, unmanned aerial vehicle experts. Their names were Leela Ben-Marouche and Dave Halstead. They were at the PA campus of Sask Polytechnic, and they drove down a bunch of times to do aerial imagery for us before and after the burns. Like really amazing people that helped us out to make sure that work was done. And really, again, from a generous donation from Eliza Mitchell. It was funny how getting the support of Nature Conservancy and some of the local ranching community took a little bit longer. And I'd worked for NCC since about 2013, but the idea of burning, like I said, in that area was politically challenging and wasn't super ideal for an organization that just kind of wants to be a good neighbor, you know. So here we're gonna build this project where you're gonna have intentional fire in an area that people really didn't want to see that sort of stuff. So in 2016, when we were in this process of building this project, it was a wet year. So 2016, grass is green, no chance of a wildfire coming through that area at all. Everybody's happy, everybody's calm. I'm starting to I'm starting to get confident that I can share this message with the locals that I've known for 5 years. I've worked in that area for 5 years with Nature Conservancy. But here then 2017 is a really bad drought. So all of a sudden, and then there was a couple of wildfires in the fall of 2017 in that area. So Nature Conservancy and the community were no longer interested in hearing about intentional fire. So I remember that winter, a bunch of groups got together and started really trying to talk it out to see how could we make this work and make this work together. So it was really critical in our discussions with Nature Conservancy, the university, the ranchers, the rural municipality, the Ministry of Agriculture, all those groups that were involved in that part of the world. We wanted to make sure that everyone understood why we would want to burn, but especially how. I I I got I spent a lot of time focusing on the why that a lot of people did not care about. So then
Mm.
I changed my approach as to how, and we could demonstrate that we were doing things safely and effectively, that these fires would not escape. And so again, that took a lot of groups coming together to make those kind of reassurances. I remember there was an RM meeting. I remember like it was yesterday. It was in Frontier in Southwest Saskatchewan, early April 2018. Now, like I say, we've gone through that winter of 2017 after the wildfires had gone through. I had set up um, plots to start work in the. We had a field season. We collected all the data for 1 year. Couldn't burn. It was just too risky. So here in April 2018, we're going to come back and try again. So I remember that meeting, that RM meeting in Frontier. We laid all the cards on the table, and with the help of the fire chief, Brian Swarbrick, I remember him very well. We were able to convince the local people that we could pull this off safely, and that would be a benefit to the fire department because they could train for a wildfire under safer conditions. They had been put through that group of volunteer firefighters were put through the ringer over the last couple of years in that area from the 2017 drought. And so they really understood the benefit to them to have some training. And I think when that meeting happened and the RM gave us approval to go ahead, I think that really helped get the Ministry of Agriculture, who had a stake in that area, it got them on side as well. And so I honest to God think we got approval from the Ministry of Agriculture to burn the morning of our first burn at Old Man is back. So Rennie,
Oh, wow.
yeah, Rennie was our fire boss for that first year. We could not have pulled that off without Rennie and the support we got from Ewassen. We had we had the fire department there, the Frontier Fire Department, the university, NCC and Ewassen, and we pulled off two 20-acre burns in a couple of days of mixed weather under a lot of pressure. And it was even like there was other crazy things that happened. Like I'd been talking probably for 6 months with producers of the nature things and selling them on this idea. You can have bison in your shots, you can have fire in your videos. David Suzuki's talking over it. Everybody's in. So the day they drove out from Vancouver in 1 day and
Oh,
showed up, and
wow.
the next day we were able to burn. Like the variability in fire weather, as well as I do, changes a lot. Some days you just can't burn. And they came all that way and we got it. They got the images and it's in their grasslands, a hidden wilderness. Just from I just can't believe it all worked out that way. I I have a ton of respect for Rennie for stepping in on land that wasn't his. That's not Biwasan there. The next year, Matthew Braun from the Nature Conservancy, like I say, a group of us had learned a lot. That same Matthew that I'd gone to school with all those years before, he was now with Nature Conservancy still, and he was the burn boss that next year we did. So we did two burns that first year, two burns the next year. We got a little bit more complex in our burns. We burned the big bison pasture and the largest cattle pasture, and we learned lots together again. And guess who shows up on that burn that year? Dinyar Minocher and his coworker from Grasslands National Park. So who Dinyar eventually became our coordinator, and all those things came together, we learned a lot by having this project. And there's more to it. Like I can go on about how this group of people expanded because we just needed we needed everybody to work together to pull this off.
For sure. Again, like that emphasis on that collaborative approach, like even when you're talking about like driving in from Vancouver and like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
drop of a hat, like
yeah.
I
I know, like just it's remarkable. Like we, leading up to those burns too, over that winter, um, we were planning for those prescribed burns, and the associated research at Old Man on His Back, Matthew Braun and I again reached out to everybody we could think of to get their help. So we talked to Carrie Hecker from Canadian Wildlife Service, Glenn Longpre from Sask Parks, Sherry Clifford from Grasslands National Park, and others. Matt had met Cliff Bettner from the Prince Albert Grand Council, First Nations Emergency Management, and even Dave Halstead from Sask Polytech. Matt convinced them to help us. Like it was just Matt was just that kind of guy. He was getting to meet all these people, and he was so outgoing, and people just wanted to work with us. So I don't and I know we didn't understand at the time, but within that few months, even a couple years at the most, we had reignited an effort that agencies had been trying to do this before. There you can see it in the literature in the 80s and the 90s. In this case, the last one before us was kind of like in that 2015 time period where people had tried to get things going together but couldn't. And this extra effort here was another attempt. And so then, kind of out of the blue, like just a few months later in 2019 now, a rep from the Weston Family Foundation reached out to me asking what ideas or groups would want to work together to protect grasslands. They had a new initiative. And here, of course I did, because here were the people that I've been working with day to day trying to get this project together. So I called them up right away and said, how could we start a more formal cooperative, a consort? We had funny names for it, consortium, anything. How can we find a way to work together? So we drafted this proposal to the Westons in late 2019. We were awarded that grant the following year. Our first hire was Dinyar. Then Dr. Roy Vera came, and then you followed after. Like Miwasan has held this all together, but it came out of this project.
absolutely. And like talking, I guess, more about the creation of the CPPFE. I know that this is the first organization of its kind in Canada. Canada's first prescribed fire association was just recently launched in Sturford, Manitoba. So like
Yeah.
this is just like an evolving, a very new and evolving like process in Canada. But I understand that there are other prescribed fire exchanges, especially in America with the Joint Fire Science, all these exchanges across America. So like when you were helping create the CPPFE, were you inspired by any of those exchanges, and like how did you implement things from like other initiatives into the CPPFE?
Yeah, we had been sort of aware of work that had been done in the United States in what would you could define as a collaborative effort. So the experience that groups like the Great Plains Fire Exchange, for instance, that have been so generous with their time with us, have really been instrumental into how we've been able to organize a multi-agency collaboration that's grown as much as it has in the last 5 years. There was a few attempts, and thank God they write it down. Um, British Columbia had one that I read about in like from 2013. As this is going on, I'm trying to read and trying to, you know, how could we make this work? So you're gathering information from all over. I remember talking to Dinyar early on as well, and he's such an outgoing guy that he would just phone these guys up, and we'd have a meeting the next day, and like, well, what do we need for a governance document? What's a terms of reference that we can use? And through these associations in the States, again, primarily the States, they just gave us the documents. They're like, here, this is what we did. and so much of their the lessons learned, that they would share with us, really frankly, that I'm sure we saved a bunch of headaches by listening to them and just, trying to take it all in. But there's so many groups in the States. Like there's a high level national organization called the Fire Learning Network, and they work, across the whole country. And then you go to the opposite extreme. You have like you mentioned, a prescribed burn association in Stewart Burn. Well, there's hundreds in the States, and they're feeding information back and forth, and thankfully sharing it with us as well. And I guess, how do I say, it really it really does come down to building relationships and developing trust in one another. There's lots and lots of meetings. Now we use Zoom, but before, you try to get together once in a while in person to have a get together, you're really just trying to build that trust. And nothing is more critical on the fire line when you have that relationship and trust. You're gonna be able to know that if you're gonna take a risk, your friends, your coworkers, your teammates are there to help figure it out. And luckily, I guess again through all this, we Eric and I kept a lot of notes. So him and I wrote a paper on some of the development and processes that went into becoming the Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange. Down to the very first, almost formal meeting of the CPPFE in Regina in 2020, where we worked out what agencies wanted to work together, what agencies would need from a centralized group to work together. And yeah, it's a ton of communication, planning, and delivering workshops. And Wasson again has carried a bunch of that load, um, from local workshops to the Trex event in Saskatoon that's now coming into its fourth year. And I say this lots, and I say it so much I don't even know if people listen to me anymore. But the strength of that collaboration comes from the contribution of each individual and each agency. If it's not a priority to one or some of those groups, then the collaboration, the cooperative effort suffers, and if enough are into it, it fails. This the Why this work is because people spend extra time trying to make it work.
So you talked so much about these collaborative processes. I'm kind of interested in your role with the government, but also like as a leading figure in prescribed fire in general. Like, what is it like to train new people in prescribed fire? Like, whether it's people you work with or people from outside agencies.
I guess I have a ton of patience. I have a ton of respect for anybody willing to start out new in prescribed fire. Like, speaking for myself, even though I've had many, many years around it, to actually take over and lead, to be a incident commander on a prescribed fire, is very challenging. And I don't necessarily have the personality out of the box that's going to be able to tell somebody to do something with authority. I'm pretty laid back. So I had to really spend a lot of time learning how I would be in a role as an incident commander. So I've played a lot of roles in the fire line, and I think that's kind of helped me be able to instruct somebody as they're going through a similar process as I did, especially if they're interested in doing different things. I'm really open to helping people through that process because I was given so much patience and care through my learning process, which has happened relatively recently. We just didn't have before the CPPFE, we just didn't have as many opportunities as we do now to get experience. Sure, you can read a book. Sure, you can go online and do a web course or whatever, but nothing like what we have now. So a person can rapidly advance in prescribed fire in this period, but you have to be willing to learn, and learning is hard. I'm not as much as I've gone through as an adult in school. It's hard on me. I'm a worrier. I'm a overthinker. It really kicks my butt. So if somebody is struggling, I get it. I can read their eyes, and I can try to help them. And if it takes multiple goes, if it takes personal time away from the fire line when we can have discussions, whatever it takes, I'm, like I said, really open to helping people through that learning process, that transition. It has it has really transformed me as an adult. I'm just even the last couple of years, I'm just I just it's been a really transformative process for me. And I've dealt with medical grade anxiety, you know, and nothing like a prescribed fire to uh, boost that anxiety when you don't want it to. But I'm just I really enjoy helping people learn about prescribed fire and how they can participate with us.
So speaking about training, at the time of recording this, it is September 2025. We are a month away from the fourth Canadian Prairies treks. So
Okay.
we're in the future right now. So this will have passed by now, but right now it's before treks, and I'm very curious about your perspective of starting out these Trex events starting like 2022, like what your role
Yeah.
was and what your experiences and what you're expecting out of this upcoming Trex as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I've always been part of the incident management team. So you're spending lots of time in advance of these events, organizing, you know, lots of time. Because my agency has done prescribed fires in the past and had a dedicated person interested in doing that for a long time, we had accumulated a lot of equipment, and so I'm able to bring that equipment to Trex and share that with other agencies that are using, and even, I'll give somebody some basic training, but that equipment is available to all of us now. Now the CPPFE, through our years of working together, has amassed quite a bit of equipment. But prescribed burning with trained personnel is critical, but you also need equipment. And so those things are part of my agency's ability. Our strength is able to bring that kind of equipment to us. And now, since our program has restarted in parks after a few years of being dormant, I have a dedicated group, a team there that we work together at Trex, splitting up. We split up into different groups. This year we'll be able to lead a few of the crews as well, and help other agencies who haven't had as much experience as us. And then we're taking that experience and expanding it onto our own agency burns, uh, with the help of Meewasin, Nature Conservancy, Canadian Wildlife Service, Silton Fire Department. We were able to do quite a few burns this year based on our what we've learned at Trex just the year before. So with 2025, I've got I think six staff return, including myself, six staff returning from parks, a couple new guys, and we're excited to learn more again. It just I couldn't imagine growing a prescribed burn program without the information and experience we gather from Trex, but then again also the relationships we're getting, to where if I put out the call and say I need a couple of people to come to a prescribed burn in parks in a couple of weeks, I get those people to come, and vice versa. If they need us, we will be there. And that's just the value of having these kind of organizational events in a Trex, and these kind of relationships we have with the multiple agencies. But for this year, yeah, I've gotten much more comfortable being an incident commander. I've got a couple of staff that are looking to become, holding specialists, firing bosses, ignition specialists. So we're gonna have a good team um, come out of this event as well. They're going to be more prepared to tackle more complex burns that we'll have in parks, working with other agencies as well. It's just the I find the Trex is the apex of what an organization of this size can do right now. I think in the future, more more and exciting things can happen. But for us right now, delivering these Trex events is just the perfect encapsulation of the effort that we have to work together.
Absolutely beautiful words, Dale.
Ah,
Uh, um, I am I'm curious because I think one of the big hurdles with getting prescribed fire on the landscape in the prairies is actually getting approval to do it. So I'm curious from your end, like what the approval process is like to get prescribed fire on these provincial crown lands and how you helped other agencies get these approvals.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, like at Sask Parks, we've benefited from a long history of burning under legal statutes. So we have the Wildfire Act and regulations, the Parks Act, but the Wildfire Act especially, it dictates to us how we plan and implement our burns, and it requires legally approvals and coordination with the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. Now, both Parks and SPSA used to be under the same Ministry of Environment. So our former director, Glenn, and the Southern Response Base leader and other members of that wildfire branch had close working relationships. Now that fragmented when the ministry split up, and then most of those guys retired in like 2020, 2021. So so that relationship between parks and SPSA had to be rebuilt, and we did that with the prescribed burns and the planning process and the reporting process. Um, I can't remember the exact year anymore, but we had reworked a burn plan template, making it much more concise, so that and both Parks and SPSA could agree that that was a useful template. Um, then in 2023, we got our first approval on a burn plan, but we didn't get the weather. Um, so we finally got approval, and we were able to implement two burns at Condi and Buffalo Pound provincial parks in spring of 2024. And that was again with the help of Meewasin, Nature Conservancy, Waniskewan, and firefighters from the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. So that little, those couple spring burns, very small, that really helped reestablish our credibility with SPSA. And we were able to then share that pathway to approval of a prescribed fire on Crown land with the other agencies we work with. So, like the Association of Manitoba Community Pastures was a founding member with the CPPFE, and I can't remember when they approached me. I think it was like late 2023 about a spring burn at Spy Hill pasture. So, as I'm drafting our own parks burn plans, we had then included them in our package to SBSA, but theirs needed an additional approval from the Ministry of Agriculture. So we'd had some history with Ministry of Ag, but we had more relationship building that went into that process to get Spy Hill's burn plan approved. And again, it just really came down to that we could demonstrate that we could conduct those burns safely, and agriculture, Ministry of Ag trusted us to do it, and we didn't let them down. And so those guys from the Association of Manitoba Community Pastures were former PFRA, so they had burned huge areas in Manitoba for decades. Like they knew I knew they could do it. They knew they could do it. So it wasn't like we were taking any risks. It was just that's how we slowly figured out this process for parks to get approval from SPSA for burning on crown lands, and for other agencies as well. So, sometimes I'm helping draft their plans. Sometimes I'm helping answer questions that they'll have about the plans. Then I'm forwarding that information to SPSA for final approval. With Aberdeen now, there's another community pasture near Saskatoon with like amazing support from their managers Sam and Brian, and they've led the effort to convince their local RM who has to sign off on that burn as well. And then again, that local assurance paves the way for Ministry of Agriculture, Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. There we get their approvals too. Matthew again from Nature Conservancy. They have these relationships with some of these pastures, and they've been helping draft those plans too. So with burning on public lands, it's not totally different than other land ownership, land tenures in the province of the prairies. It just happens to be there's a few extra steps, and now after a few years of trying, we've figured out how to navigate them, and I'm happy to help any agency get their fires off on public land in the province.
Sure, and gaining that trust, I guess, is like very, very important.
Absolutely. You
Hmm.
can't take this on without having some assurance that the project will be successful. And if I don't know you, I don't know. It really really helps to get to know people.
Actually, pivoting more into like a scientific question. One big thing about prescribed bars is the combination with grazing or pyrrhic herbivory or patch
Hmm.
burn grazing.
Yeah.
Can you explain more about what that is and why that is such an effective management tool for on the land that you work on?
Yeah, absolutely. We there's some pyrrhic herbivory in parks. That was the research project that we did at Old Man and His Back. It was basically just, testing this fire grazing interaction. It goes by other names too, shifting mosaic hypothesis. So it's the idea that grazing animals are following, so cattle, bison, sheep, elk, whatever, are following, are moving along across their landscape, trying to find palatable and nutritious forage. Just like you or I, we know where the good food is. We're going to go there. So they're searching this out, and it happens to be that following a fire, that grass or forage or whatever forbs that are growing back are more palatable and more nutritious. So then these grazing animals spend more time grazing these areas than other areas. This allows the grasses and the plants and the fuel to build up in areas that are less grazed. So they're unburned areas, and they're just less grazed now. So then you, as a manager, can come back and target those unburned areas to be burned later so that the grazing animals will then be attracted to this area. So this creates these shifting patches of different habitat types. This is the core idea of pyrrhic that had not really been explicitly tested in Canada's prairies until our project at Old Man on His Back. Whereas in the States again had been extensively studied and implemented. A lot of people, a lot of individuals, a lot of agencies were using it. But with this GPS collars, we were able to statistically verify that cattle and bison were both attracted to these burn sites and selected them preferentially over unburned sites. So now you have patches of vegetation with different structure in different stages of recovery, shown to be ideal for habitat for a diverse suite of native species, especially grassland birds, which are in steep decline. So, and obviously, more nutritious forage also benefits livestock, cattle health. And as a manager, then you can move animals, grazing animals, to areas traditionally underused in areas of your pastures for whatever reason. So then your livestock operation becomes more cost effective because you're more efficiently and effectively using the land base that you have. So there's plenty of benefits. Again, this is kind of some of the why as to somebody might burn. I'm interested in who and how. Those are different ways to look at what we're trying to do.
Expanding a bit more on like that the patch burn grazing, like I understand like this is also
Yeah.
like a common thing used in farming operations, and I know that you have a background as a farmer, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I've been farming since with my family since I was a little kid.
So can you talk more about how fire can be implemented in ranching operations and fire from a rancher's perspective?
Yeah, like on our farm, my family's farm, we use fire for mainly like annual crop agriculture. So my mom was like a real firebug. Um, we would remove previous crop residue or around dry sloughs to get more land back into cultivation. Now, because we have a few steers out there in the summer, we're looking to use fire to move those steers through different parts of our pasture that they normally don't want to go to. That grass has become, weedy or dried out, or it's got too much woody planting has encroached there, and so you can help deal with some of those issues by bringing in prescribed fire. It really helps when you have grazing animals like cattle, sheep are good too. Come in relatively soon after that fire. So even if you have woody plants growing back after fire and in the prairies, that is primarily the situation. In some other parts of North America, you don't have resprouting shrubs. You can kill them with a single, sometimes an intense fire, but you can actually kill them. Ours almost always resprout. So then you're having to deal with those plants growing back. So if soon after that fire and those green shoots are still coming back, they're palatable to livestock still. If you wait too long, they harden off, they get their bark on the outside. It's just the interaction doesn't work anymore. So you have livestock in there soon after, they can keep that woody plant regrowth at bay. Grass can has a chance to come back in there. You can get more grazing opportunities. You can get more, weight on your grazing animals, which is the goal of any rancher I'm familiar with. So there's certainly, like I said, even in production agriculture, annual cropping, like what my family's primarily involved with, we use fire. But as in terms of a rancher, like I said, on these community pastures, that's what they're trying to do, just on a shared piece of land. But you could do the exact same thing on these guys' own ranching properties for those reasons. You're trying to control shrubs from growing in. You just want more grass. You want more. Um, you want more nutritious feed for your animals so that they're going to be healthier. There's lots of reasons why you would consider it. And again, just a few years ago, I did kind of an informal poll of who was incorporating fire into their ranching operation, and I couldn't find a single person. And through these Trex events, through the CPPFE, through their repeated communications, even the Ministry of Agriculture now is putting out social media posts um, showing the benefits of prescribed fire in your ranching operation. These things just this is all relatively new, and it'll take time to grow, but I find it's really a great development. It's just nice to have people thinking about this sort of thing, in terms of your land management, because we know it's beneficial from a biodiversity perspective. You know, how can we convince other people to use it that it'll be directly benefit for their businesses as well? That's a great thing that can happen.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting to see that grow from like people who are very hesitant about fire to like so I like to ask this on the Prairie Firelands podcast to my guests. So what is your vision for the future of prescribed fire in the Canadian prairies?
Well, I guess I would have to. again be grateful for the teachers that have spent so much time with me trying to help me get better at this sort of thing. So Brad Elder, Cody Wohlers, um, Shankleton, Matt, Matt. They were such good guys to me, and I didn't think I didn't think I could do this. I thought maybe I could be in the background writing grants or writing papers or playing a role in some way, but they showed me that I could be a part of this, in a real way with them. So I have been extremely impressed with the progress that the CPPFE has made in the prairies related to prescribed fire. There's I've read tons of different ways that this sort of thing could be done. There's lots of organizational models. Um, the CPPFE merges various roles like a prescribed burn association, prescribed fire council, a fire science exchange. But it's it's worked. I think I don't know how long it's sustainable as all of those things, but it's you can already see it's starting to grow new organizations to take on some of those other roles. And it'll find itself in a future model that makes there where there's some parallel in the United States or another part of the world. But right now, it's trying to do a lot of different things. It's certainly been instrumental in our own parks, Sass Parks burn program, and for me, providing us with personnel from other agencies and training our own staff at these kind of events. Um, like to me, I think we're really in a golden era of prescribed fire in the prairies. We have progress and success behind us, but we also have future goals and dreams on the horizon that are really attainable. So you have great people around us, super enthusiastic, all pulling together. It's a really special time. And I know as an organization gets bigger, those special moments maybe continue to happen, but they don't happen with as many people all at once. I don't know how, maybe I'm missing how to explain that as best as I could, but I'm really, really happy with the way things are now. I think to link the agencies that are under the CPP with new collaborations, with collaborative efforts across Canada and the US, we're able to grow our learning opportunities with experts internationally. I'll be able to look back and see people that I had worked with go on to great things. And I'm very excited for them. Sometimes you just know somebody has something special and they're going to take it further than you ever could. And I'm really happy that I can be part of their journey. Um, they'll be better burners, they'll be better scientists, they'll be better organizers than any of us now. And I would love that. That's that's my hopeful future. Those are my goals for the future is to help people achieve uh, whatever they want out of this. It really is. We have the people, we have the funding, and we have the pathway for people to reach those kind of goals. And this model can be applied to other things, but right now we're looking at prescribed fire, and it's just it's a cool time for me. I'm happy to be a part of it.
So true. Oh my gosh. So inspirational. Do
Aw.
you have do you have anything else to add?
Just that I would hate if I missed somebody to thank because that's what I kick at myself for not mentioning Brad and Matt and and Melody and and Cody. Those guys that came up from the States that have helped us and been so patient and so kind to us They have lives. They have jobs. This is extra that it has been, so appreciated what they've done for us up here and had such an impact. And maybe that's the kicker. Maybe that's what they get out of it because they watched us go from something small to something bigger in a short period of time. And I get excited by that, and maybe they do too. And so, but I just can't thank them enough. And again, like a ton of other people um, that have made this possible. I'd hate if I missed anybody to thank for that. That's the only if I would say anything, that's what it would be. I hope I don't miss anybody when I say these things. Ian um, uh, from
Wanaskewin.
Wanaskewin, Jennifer from Lakeland. Like these people are just doing tremendous things. You know, Darren from Alberta. Like I love working with Darren. There's just a bunch of people that we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. The CPPFE is so many partner agencies joining together. That is what the heart of the CPPFE is. Like there's so many people behind
Yeah.
this. It's not just a group. Like technically there's only like two of us who actually work under the Canadian Prairies Prescribed
Well,
Fire Exchange
yeah,
right now, like with that name, but it's actually
yeah,
so many people.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many people involved and there's so many people to thank. And
Oh, exactly. No,
so
I
right. This
love
is a
working
group.
with you, Rennie, and Roy. Roy has been tremendous. He's always there to help
Absolutely.
out. He is the most positive, fun person to work with, and
That's so
so
true.
so knowledgeable and humble. Like who wouldn't want to work with that guy? Like it's just really special the people that you get to meet in an organization that 5 years ago didn't exist, you know. So it's really cool.
Roy, if you're listening to this, you will be
Yeah,
a guest
yeah,
on Prairie
yeah.
Fire Lines. Ha ha
Get you,
ha. We're
yeah.
gonna get you on here.
Get get you some Roy. Yeah,
We
that's
we
right.
have we have things to talk about.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dale, for being on here. I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kat. Thank you for making this happen.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to Prairie Fire Lines on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow the Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or visit our website at grasslandfire.ca to stay updated on all things prescribed fire in the prairies. Huge thank you goes out to the Weston's Prairie Grassland Initiative for making this project possible and to all of you for listening. Until next time, stay curious about the power of prescribed fire. This is Prairie Fire Lines, where we keep the conversation burning. And I'm your host, Kat Zanz, signing off.